Welcome to Untapped, Knowledge for College, presented by the College Knowledge Foundation. Join us as we untap the world of college admissions, financial aid, and student life through collective wisdom and engaging conversations.
Welcome to episode 10 of Untapped Knowledge for College. I'm your host, Donovan Lindsay, and today we have a very special guest, Matthew Foreman. Matthew's the longest running intern here at College Knowledge Foundation, and having been a part of our team for about a year and a half now, he's not only helped with the creation of this podcast, but he's also been an integral part of the team, bringing many different fresh perspectives and new viewpoints to things, and has showed incredible dedication, which is why we've kept him around for at least a year and a half already. He's a senior about to graduate with his degree in enterprise risk management. So if you're looking for someone for a job, definitely hit him up. And today we're diving into the importance of internships and stepping outside of your comfort zone and how these experiences will shape your future a bit. So Matthew, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Donovan.
Yeah, so I'd like to really just kind of dive in. Matthew, when you look at, being a part of college knowledge now for about a year and a half, how would you say that your internship has shaped your overall perspective? And when it comes to like your career internship and like professional and personal growth so far?
Yeah, so when I look at college knowledge specifically, I think it really changed my perspective from kind of looking at businesses from like a time glass kind of view. I really realized I liked to like the aspect of development and kind of like long-term projects. So I kind of hadn't had that opportunity before working for college knowledge, but just working on like some of the projects and kind of working on like the transition. When I first got here, we were a sole proprietorship, and kind of like I was kind of able to help with the process of transitioning to a nonprofit. So just like kind of taking a step back and looking at businesses from that point of view, something I kind of appreciated. And personal growth wise, I definitely think I just got a lot more leadership experience. At college knowledge specifically, especially being here for like a year. You kind of said this a couple of meetings ago, but like you have seniority now and people kind of look at you differently. Like without people might not say it, but like when you're in a meeting, I think other interns rely on me for other things, whether it's just questions about basic things, what we do at our business, how it works. So kind of yeah, just like taking initiative and having leadership experience. Definitely have gotten a lot of personal growth through working at College Knowledge.
Yeah, I think you realize something that a lot of people, whether they realize it on their own or they realize it because someone else tells them it, but at a certain point you have people that are asking you questions that you
Yeah.
once asked. It's like, wait a second, how did I get here to the point where now these people are asking me the questions that I was asking just a few months ago? But when you look at any type of professional experience that you're getting outside the classroom, you just learn. Like you learn things you don't even know that you're learning them, but all of a sudden it's like you've got this almost your 360 view on an organization begins to continually expand, and to the point where you can answer not just questions about your role but other people's roles or just about the business in general. But I think that that's something that an internship is hugely beneficial for, because that's not something that when you start an internship that you really realize. But if you're able to continue your internship into multiple semesters or multiple years or even getting hired full time with the company, it's like you're set because you've been there. You took that leap, you got that experience.
Yeah, and you don't always know everything, but you have that familiarity, and you could kind of have, you can point them in the right direction. So
So in your experience during internships, would you say it's better to do one internship? Would you say it's better to do multiple internships? Talk to me, talk to the audience about kind of your experience relating to getting the experience outside of the classroom.
yeah, and it's different for everyone because some internships demand way more than other internships, but I think as much experience as you can get, is the best. I started looking at internships sophomore year of college, but I know a lot of people that look freshman year. We have interns that are freshmen at College Knowledge, and I think really with that, the earlier the better, because you gain this, like we said, it's gained experience. So kind of along the way, you build your story, you have more understanding of how the business world truly works. So yeah, I really think more is better, I would say.
So when you look at the types of internships that you've had yourself, how would you say some of the things differ when it comes to location of the internship, but also like the frequency of maybe like meetings or things like that?
Yeah, and that's a great question because I've had a lot of like different internships. I've had in sophomore year, I had one at an event planning company, LHH, and that was in Virginia. And that was a lot more short-term project based, because it's one event and you're planning around that one event. And once that event is over, the internship was kind of completed. Um, and I've obviously college knowledge. I work from remotely, so we go on like virtual meetings every week. So like this summer, exactly, I worked. I had the opportunity of working with Amazon as an operations internship in Florida, and that was just a truly like eye-opening experience, just moving somewhere completely different in the middle of Florida, away from all my family. Um, and it was something I was excited for at first, and then you're there, and it's a little isolating. So like you hope for all these things and then it just kind of happens. And it kind of made me realize that like it's what you kind of make out of it.
So looking at, being a senior right now
Okay.
and majoring in enterprise risk management, would you say that your initial search for internships was based off of what you were majoring in, or was it based off of just like, I want to get some experience?
Yeah, so I think it was a little bit of both. I definitely at first was looking at just mostly enterprise risk management internships. But along the way, like I kind of realized how broad my major was and that it can kind of fit into a lot of different industries. And I
Hmm.
don't necessarily know exactly what I wanted to do. So I kind of I definitely opened up my search towards the end of the search process.
So when you were looking for searching for internships, like
Yeah.
how were you searching? Like what were kind of the methods you were using to just find something? Were you doing things online? Were you going to companies' websites? Like what was your mode or method of searching for internships? And then to expand on even that, as you're searching for full-time jobs, what kind of things are you utilizing now that you feel that has helped you that could potentially help other students in your shoes as they begin to search for internships in college?
Yeah, so I think the first place I started was just looking what my university had. So at Penn State we have a whole office for SMEAL career services. So I was able to like book a appointment with an advisor, and they told me the types of career sites and services that Penn State offered. And I definitely utilized that. That's how I was able to kind of find college knowledge in the first place. But throughout the kind of when I was looking for internships, I also wanted to have a foundation of like what I was applying for and what people in risk management, what kind of jobs they would start out in. So along the way, I kind of realized that a lot of that was analyst roles. So I think the biggest thing is I don't think you should kind of um, sector yourself to one kind of way of finding jobs. I think you should look in LinkedIn. You shouldn't just go to career fairs. You should kind of look on, your career site or Indeed or other kind of places. So, um, kind of along the way, you find your footing and you realize all that you have to offer, and just utilizing all of that and kind of putting your foot in all aspects of it. I found that to be the most successful.
So you mentioned the resources that the school offered. You mentioned some of the different search engines, and then you also mentioned a career fair. So for those listening that aren't sure kind of what a career fair is, kind of explain what is a career fair and talk a little bit about kind of what to expect like when you go to like what do you actually see when you get there.
Yeah. Career fair. A lot of schools in the fall and um in the spring will pretty much bring out a bunch of employers and they will set up booths and they're pretty much looking for to give students either internships or full-time opportunities. So my biggest recommendation with this is you want to research these companies early and you want to know exactly like what you're going there for. Um, so you want to kind of like research these companies beforehand, and all of the schools will give you a list of like who's coming beforehand. A lot of schools will give you a map of where what it looks like and where these companies will be. So kind of after going to 4 years of career fairs, I think the biggest thing I learned is, the freshman year I just showed up and was, hoping that I could talk to someone and find a job. And then the next year, you prepare your elevator pitch and you're researching these companies beforehand and you have a basis, you know what you're kind of looking for. And I think you kind of learn along the way. But my biggest advice would be to, yeah, kind of research these companies and really just I think a lot of people will just kind of ask questions just to kind of like look like they're interested, but that can kind of hurt you. I think it's important to kind of just like ask questions that are like you can't just find on their website, like ask intuitive questions about what the day-to-day role looks like. So yeah.
I think that's really important what you're talking about because the genuineness of you asking a question that's easily Googleable is
Yeah,
very different to as a recruiter also now. Like if someone's asking me a question that I know is easily Googleable, I'm like, they don't really know much about the company.
exactly. Yeah.
Which at times that's fine, it could just be something they stumble upon, but at times too, I feel like it's like if that's definitely someplace that you're interested in, you don't want to waste your time asking a question that is easily answerable online. I think another thing
I think it works for. Oh, I'm sorry. I think it works for like both, not just like career fairs, but interviews too. Just people that are like that you're interviewing or talking to, recruiting, they want to know that like you've taken the initiative to kind of and you're interested in what you're kind of applying for. So really, what I've kind of realized is that before you apply to a job, you're just like you're namelessly applying to a job just because it's kind of like a nice company. Kind of research what that role is and what you're going to be doing on a daily day basis and what it looks like and if you're really fit for what you're applying for.
Yeah, and one of the things too that I feel like you said without saying earlier was that it's not bad to start early. It's actually better to start early and just kind of throwing yourself in there because you started going to a career fair like your first year where, in my experience, so many students aren't thinking about a career fair until um, their junior or senior year. But at least going and potentially being even overwhelmed with what you see, it's like, okay, here's how I need to prepare and kind of bring my A game,
Yeah.
moving forward.
Yeah, I feel like that eye opener at like a career fair, that first career fair, like I feel like that's needed, even
Hmm.
if you're not getting anything out of it, but just like seeing it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely recommend going freshman year.
Yeah, and kind of staying along that same track of like, especially just your first year as a college student, kind of stepping out of your comfort zone. How do you feel that stepping out of your comfort zone has helped you as it relates to like professionally looking at internships or even networking, doing outreach and just kind of contacting someone to get their take on something that you're looking at? Like, talk to us a little bit about, how do you feel stepping out of your comfort zone is important in that overall growth of the college student professionally?
Yeah, well, stepping out of your comfort zone in anything, I think, is important. Because it's really just a learning experience anytime you step out of your comfort zone. In terms of networking, I think this might not be like the exact answer to your question, but I think with networking, a lot of people are like when they think of networking, they're thinking of someone that just gives you a job. But there's a lot of people that could just be helpful that don't aren't necessarily gonna like give you a job, but like you don't know along your journey. that you'll be contacting this person for a question. So like for example, like there was an intern I when I was working at Amazon this summer, there was an intern I was kind of speaking with who would just be he was an intern and he had just become a manager. And I got his email and everything, and I still today I've been like, I didn't realize I was gonna get I was gonna get like a full-time offer for Amazon. So now like kind of speaking to him, he's a resource I realized I would have had.
Hmm.
So there's just people along your way you don't really realize that are, it can be very helpful to you, even if it's not necessarily a job, but just kind of asking questions, clarifying questions.
I think something that a misconception about networking is that you have to kind of shoot for the stars, and it's like the people at the tops of the organization that you feel can hire you or provide you with an opportunity. I think
Yeah.
from my perspective of what I've done with networking, the best networking I've done has really been lateral, because those are the people that are at the same spot that I'm at. And then I always will try to surround myself with people who want to achieve more and who want to achieve better. So they're able to put themselves in rooms that with other people, I'm able to put myself in rooms with other people. And you may not be in the room that's going to help you, but I may be in the room that's going to help Matthew, or you may be in the room that's going to help Donovan. So if you're kind of
Yeah.
keeping your eyes open for opportunities, you can begin to recognize that more as you grow professionally. As I did work with this person, they're in this position, we were both interns at the same time, I'm going to reach out to them just to see what they're doing, or I'm going to reach out to them to see kind of what they're seeing, because that might be a pathway that I could see myself going on. But I feel like there's a huge misconception, as you were saying too, with networking, where it's like not everyone's going to give you a job, not
Yeah,
everyone
exactly.
is that end person, but like networking is also, it's not a one-time thing. Like a lot of people see networking as a transactional relationship, where it's like you do
Yeah.
something for me, I do something for you, and that's kind of it. It's the complete opposite. Networking is a transformational experience where it's like it's something that you have to nurture and grow over time, like with any relationship. That's what networking is. I mean, the hundreds and thousands of people that I've been able to network with over the years, I wouldn't have any of the success I feel that I have now without those connections and those relationships. In addition to students that I've had who've interned with me just with college knowledge alone. Like so many of those students, can text them now and it wouldn't be just out of the norm because they've got questions about career path, or I'm just checking in with them, or they've met someone that could be a resource for me for college knowledge, or still I know what they're interested in, and I see an article on LinkedIn that I think they'll be interested in, or I meet someone and like, oh, you should connect with this person. So like networking, I feel, is such a huge underrated thing for students as they are entering college. But kind of how you're saying, don't be afraid of it, because as you attended, this just your first career fair as a freshman when you were in college, like again, building it. And so many people are
Yeah.
just, I feel, afraid to approach someone. But the more you do it, like going to the career fair, how can I get better at attending a networking event? Just like how can I get better at interviews, or how can I get better at writing my resume and tailor it more to the position? Like it's such a huge learning experience.
Yeah, and kind of like building off what you said, like a lot of people, especially in college, your life changes and moves so fast. You might not think like you need someone at that moment, but you might need them at another point, like I just mentioned. So I didn't even think of it, kind of like moving and networking laterally. But yeah, that's a great point. The people that are kind of like your peers and everyone, they understand, and they're going through the exact same thing you're going through. So they know kind of how to give good advice for it. So yeah.
And I think too, one thing I didn't hit on, which you just talked about, is they are going through the same thing that you're going through. So they're the almost the best people to network
Yeah,
with,
exactly.
because you can almost share the same struggles and successes and help each other more because you're at the same level. Kind of looking, your outlook on things is extremely similar.
Yeah.
So looking more into that, I know part of the question I had asked you before is like, when have you looked at or I'm sorry, what have been times where you feel like you've kind of stepped outside of your comfort zone in your professional experience so far, where you begin to grow a little bit?
Yeah. So kind of going back to this summer, when I was in Auburndale, Florida, working in operations, I was working at a warehouse, for Amazon. And part of the role, I mean, I was an area manager. I was an intern area manager. So, um, kind of going into the whole experience, I was mentoring a person who at like a at a warehouse, there's a lot of things going on, and when you're managing a warehouse, you're a lot of places at once. So I kind of understood he's not always going to be mentoring me all the time. So I kind of had to figure out how to be a manager just by myself. So
Hmm.
one of the fun tasks I remember I was given was I had to talk to some person who was scanning boxes about how their rate was not high enough. And
Hmm.
um, I just remember doing that and being really scared to approach this woman because I had just gotten here and I look younger than everyone there. And like she could be my mom. And I just didn't know how to approach it because I didn't even know how to do the job that she was doing. And I had to tell her that. So, um, I learned it's really how you kind of approach people. So instead of telling her like, "Hey, your rate is not high enough. Like, can you please scan faster?" Like, you can say like you can ask like, "What kind of boundaries are in your way? How can I like make this better for you? Like, what can I do to make this better for you?" Because we both have to reach the same goal.
Hmm.
And that's kind of at Amazon, that's really just reaching the quotas that corporate will send at a fulfillment center. They reach certain scanning quotas, how much freight you're supposed to move in an hour, and we have to make sure that we meet that. So eventually I realized her scanner was broken, and we were able to get her a new scanner. And she worked there for the rest of the shift, and her rate went up. So it's not always what you think, and it's really what it made me realize is it's really just how you approach people from the beginning really like can just determine how that interaction goes. So yeah,
I would even say further than that, not only how that interaction goes, but how the future interactions will go. Because if that's
yeah,
your first time meeting someone, that's, first impressions. Like you coming up to her and not being very, kind of like very authoritative and like kind of waving your finger at her like you're doing this wrong, but seeking to understand. That is something huge that I feel so many people in leadership don't realize how important that is, because her productivity level then could have went in the other direction because
yeah.
now she's all upset or depressed or there's all these emotions that's going through. But you taking that time, I feel like um that's something that was intimidating to you, but you were able to step out of your comfort zone, and it does seem like you learned quite a bit from that.
And kind of just like understanding really like any leader, just like understanding your associates as human beings and people and not like just demanding results from them without like like understanding what the issue is, because there's
Mhm.
some people have maybe it's a bad day or something. So yeah.
What would you say has been your biggest takeaways? And you may have actually just answered this question, but what would you say has been kind of your biggest takeaways from doing internships as a college student?
Yeah. My biggest takeaway is it's really not always going to be what you expect. Even I mean, it's probably not going to be what you expect is the answer because even college knowledge, when I applied, like I had this idea of kind of just working in business operations, and I got the opportunity to kind of expand to not just business, but I mean development, but also marketing and kind of appreciating business from a different standpoint. So I think, yeah, like I've kind of said this already, and as cliche as it sounds, it's really what you make of it. You're gonna in any internship, you're gonna be kind of tested, and they're gonna give you responsibilities. And it's up to you to kind of handle that. So yeah, I would say, um, yeah, you're not always there. And in some aspects, it it may not always like be clear how it ties into like what you're studying or what your like what your major is, but I don't know, there's always a way to kind of figure it out and I don't know, tackle what you have in front of you.
So one of the things that you talked about, which I feel like is really important to dive a little bit more into, is the almost like the wiggle room you had with college knowledge. So what would you say to a student who isn't really sure of what they'd like to do, but they're looking to get a vast amount of experience? And how would you say that would relate to a larger company versus a smaller company when it comes to the flexibility? Working at a place like Amazon, where I don't know if you would have felt like you had the flexibility to do nearly as many things and take on as many tasks because it's a larger organization. Like, do you feel like there's any correlation between doing an internship or even working full time for a larger company versus a smaller company and the amounts and different types of experiences that you would get from them?
Yeah, and that's a great point. Yeah, so I guess I've worked at like I interned at like two pretty like giant companies. I mean, Amazon and then LHH is part of a Deco group, which is a giant company in Switzerland. And from what I would from what I grasped, I had a lot more flexibility at a smaller kind of nonprofit like college knowledge. We kind of have the opportunity to, well, I mean, when I first got here, like I said, it was a sole proprietorship. And then I was kind of part of the transformation of finding a kind of posting to make us a nonprofit. So it moves so much faster at a smaller company, and you're part of that kind of change and facilitation. So I think, since there's not as much people, um, you have a lot more freedom. Just put that way, you have a lot more kind of hands in the pot to make the company move. Yeah, you have a lot more freedom at a smaller company. So, and with my experience at bigger companies, they kind of have like already figured out what your role is and how that day is going to look and everything. So you don't have as much of that freedom, and that could be a good and a bad thing. You know, so yeah, there's pros and cons to both, and I really think I don't think one is better than the other. I would just say like you have to find kind of a group of people that you can work with, and yeah.
I know a lot of students would be, they're nervous about pursuing an internship. What advice would you give to a student who is a little unsure about what type of internship is for them?
Yeah. So I talked about this earlier, but I really think the biggest thing is before you really apply, um, I think you should do research on your own hand of like what kind of your major, what like what that career path looks like. So, for example, I'm in enterprise risk management and I know like you can't just start in the field, just go to be a risk manager of a company. It just doesn't work like that. Like you have to gain experience on the way. So part of that is being, like a credit analyst, risk analyst, wherever you're doing your risk management, whatever industry, you're an analyst in that kind of way. So I think everyone's obviously has different majors. So kind of researching what your career path looks like is a good thing. I would also say, and I've said this too, but just start early. The earlier I mean, you can talk to people. If you're at a college, you can talk to your counselor, or sorry, your advisor, and like there's big support systems in college that can kind of help you out and guide you in the direction that you should be looking. So, yeah.
I know for me, for instance, when I was doing my internship in college, me being the procrastinator that I am, I didn't get my internship until I think it was about a month before I it was required that I do one. And I definitely should have looked earlier, but a lot of what helped me out was just networking. And I did my internship at so my bachelor's degree is in criminal justice, and I did my internship at a juvenile probation office. But I had never even been interested or really considered doing it at a juvenile probation office. But that's something I could see myself over the last 10 or so years now doing something full time in that area, simply because I kind of took that risk and was like, maybe I'll do this, you know. I had a mentor who knew someone who knew someone who was like the supervisor of the place that to get me an interview. And I actually went in, and the lady that interviewed me, who would have been my supervisor, she had actually come into my class at one point and talked to the students. So we both saw each other like, I didn't realize it was you. But from the networking from that alone, and just kind of doing a little bit of the research, like, I can kind of see myself doing this. But for me, that was a slam dunk, which I know it doesn't always happen that way. But doing that research is definitely crucial, because you want to at least know a little bit of what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, I think I was talking to someone in my my management class about how like 99% of job postings are just there to say that like they posted it, and like most of them are just filled because of like because of like networking. So
A lot of companies
yeah, go ahead.
will they have like human resources policies saying you can't fill a position before you've posted the position.
Yeah.
A lot of the times you may know who I've worked at many places where they knew who was going to fill the position before they even posted it, but the policy was that you had to post it. So networking more than anything as you begin your college journey, even your first year, whether it's getting involved in a club, attending an event, doing an internship, doing a job shadow, doing research, that pays dividends to when you're in your junior, senior year looking for internships or jobs.
Yeah. And I just right away when I went into college, I was pretty intimidated about the process of getting an internship because I was lucky enough to have my brother was already in college, so kind of towards he graduated when I was like a senior. So I kind of knew the process of being a college student and kind of getting a job post graduation. And his biggest thing he would always harp on is just get an internship, get as many internships as possible. So that had always been my goal, kind of throughout college. And I was intimidated by it, but like we've kind of said, like just getting a start on it early and just getting a familiarity with whether it's career fairs or just an interview or um, just applications, regular applications. So just getting familiar with it, and the earlier the better. So
Yeah, that's huge. You luckily had your brother, but like just students really trying to look at any resource or someone that they've have who done one to just ask questions, I feel is good, because that's all we have is questions. And as long as we get some of those questions answered, that can at least put our minds um at ease a little bit.
yeah.
Looking at a freshman starting college this upcoming fall, what would be advice that you would give them that you learned over your 4 years of college relating to what we're talking about now, internships or networking or just college in general? What would you say would be one, maybe two things that you would be like, think about this, keep this in your head as you begin your first semester or first year in college?
Yeah. So I mean the first year for anyone is gonna be it's really drastically different. Like you're living alone for the first time. Like you're moving out for the first time. So there's a lot of change that happens the first semester. A lot of times the people you're hanging out with aren't going to be the same people you're hanging out with. So more than anything, it's an experimental kind of phase. My biggest thing is there's always going to be some type of club fair. The first kind of weeks that you're going there as a college student, and I think going to the club fair as a freshman, that's like the most important thing. A lot of your friends you'll meet will be from clubs, and just being active in the with the school in some aspect is super important. So I would say that. Um,
Well, can you first explain what a like for those listening, like what
Yeah.
is a club fair?
Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty much like a career fair, but with clubs. So, um, the way Penn State does it is usually it's still like in August, so it's super hot outside, and they go outside and they have a bunch of booths of all the clubs that are there, trying to recruit new members. So you go to each booth, you ask questions. Usually at the booth they'll give you a flyer to like add you to the group me for the club and actually like start joining the club. So um yeah, um I remember like the first week I went there with my floor freshman year. It was a super memorable experience. And I found like the sports business club, which I didn't know existed. And still to this day I'll go to some of the meetings, and they have events that I still go to as well. So yeah, I would recommend that. Um, and then yeah, I don't know. I would just say kind of um I don't know. I would just say soak it in because it goes by fast. It really does.
As you're realizing even more and more now, being
Yeah.
in your last semester, how quickly even the last couple of weeks, I'm sure, are seeming like they're going by.
And I guess that's like get involved faster too, because it really does, like, you don't realize how fast 4 years will go by. So kind of like saying, hey, I'll do this next year. It's like it's hard to do that with college because you're only there for 4 years. So if you have ideas, if you have something, a calling or something, just follow it. So yeah.
Well, Matthew, I can't thank you enough for being a part of the team for a year and a half, but also, thank you so much for sharing your insights today and being one of the very few people who have been on the podcast twice already. But I guess that all of your hard work specifically with getting it up and running, I guess it makes sense. But it's been again really good having you here. I know our listeners will take away a lot from this conversation. Internships are truly a valuable way to build experience and outside the classroom, but also step outside of your comfort zone and prepare you professionally. To our listeners considering whether or not to take an internship and unsure of what kind of opportunity, remember stepping outside of your comfort zone is something that is a good thing to do. It's not always going to be it's not always going to be something that's easy, but in the long run, it's definitely something that's going to benefit you. But thank you all again for tuning in for another episode of Untapped Knowledge for College. Be sure to check out some of our other episodes and stay tuned for more. Matthew, thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to Untapped Knowledge for College. Join us next time as we continue to untap the wisdom and guidance essential for success on your college journey. Follow us on Spotify or click the link in the description below to follow us on other platforms. Visit our website if you're interested in booking a session.